I'm Yann Bizeul. I work for NetApp as a system engineer in the New York metro area. Working for just 2 customers here, but we'll see how I ended up working on participating in these projects with mostly a colleague of mine from Netherlands, Chris Madden. NetApp that's one of these things where we can send a lot of metrics. So we're talking about metrics here. Storage, like many infrastructure elements, is one of these things that can push out a lot of things that can be useful, that can be not so useful. But having that information and being able to store that information and present that information in a meaningful way can be a game changer for our customers. So let's get started. And the reason why we went that direction, trying to work with Grafana to present storage metrics to our customers, is that we needed some kind of an open solution, an alternative to our supported products. First of all, I'm going to ask the audience, who's familiar with NetApp Filer's equipment? Okay, not bad, good turnout. So we needed something else than the supported products to let people look at the metrics that their filers were generated, because the supported solution is maybe too high level, and it presents you with basic information like IOPS, like latency, that kind of stuff, capacity. But when troubleshooting, when doing more advanced analysis, it's just not enough. So if you're familiar with OCUM and OPM, or what used to be a DFM server before, we actually stripped down some stuff, and there's some metrics that we don't present anymore when you're using a clustered data on top infrastructure. So there was a lack and a gap that we needed to bridge in some way for some of our customers. So obviously, as an effect, it's targeted as power users. So usually that's people that understand and are able to ingest these metrics and understand what they're for and what is a problem, what is not a problem. We try to help with providing meaningful dashboards, but at the end of the day, if you don't know what a specific metric is and why there's a spike here, it's going to be hard to explain everything that's going on in a filer. But of course, you have your account team or your partner that's going to be able to help with that. 2 main use cases: troubleshooting and planning. Obviously, you try to be ahead of the curve, so try to use that as a planning tool to kind of see where you're standing in terms of capacity, see where you're standing in terms of performance as well when you're provisioning new data, what cluster makes sense to host these new data, what aggregate. It helps you to make better choices. And troubleshooting, of course, depending on the granularity of the data, you're going to have a phone call, you're going to go on the dashboard quick, you're going to have maybe your custom dashboards and go on that specific volume and see what's going on and maybe identify the problem faster than if you just had the standard tool. The standard tools are not bad. They were doing a pretty good job at trying to help you determine what's a bully, what's a victim, what's going on globally in a cluster, and try to analyze that. But if you want to go deeper than that, you need to find alternative. So as we said, performance monitoring, I like that little icon here, the bell. So that's something we're going to work on. There's today, Grafana 4 is perfectly fine with what we're going to see today. It works, the dashboard works, they're integrated without problem, we tested that. There's nothing specific in terms of alerting yet, so we're going to work on that. But that's something you're going to have to do yourself, either in your own Grafana infrastructure or in the one that's provided in the virtual appliance. Capacity planning is a big thing. We are in a world where pretty much everything is clustered. We have pretty big and bigger pool of data, and that's something that you need to take into consideration when you want to put new workloads. Do I need capacity? Do I need performance? What is my cluster and what's the space available across my infrastructure? Do I need to add shelves in the next 2 months or whatnot? And troubleshooting, of course, we never like to be there, but that's pretty much our life sometimes for our support engineers. And it's proven very useful, the Grafana integration, the fact that you can have, most of you, if you work with NetApp, you're going to be familiar with the PerfStat tool. it's just a pain in the butt to run, and it's, I'm with you, that's a pain in the butt to analyze as well. So that's a lot of data. We have tools to read this data, but when the customers are able to, by themselves, see what's going on, they're actually able to help the support and send maybe screenshots with something that they saw that's not really necessarily obvious from the perf stat. So we're going to talk about two solutions. The first one is Harvest. That's a project that's maintained by Chris Madden out of Netherlands. And the companion, the ADVA, which is the Advanced Dashboard Virtual Appliance that distributes Harvest as an alternative. And Oats is more like an incubating project at NetApp. It's going to be more officially supported. It's not out yet, but I think it's interesting talking about it because it gives you a sense of what NetApp as a company is doing around that. So what's on the left here is a really personal initiative. So these are projects that maintained by two SEs at NetApp, and we're doing that on the side, and we're trying to support that as best as we can. I think we've been doing a pretty good job so far. Maybe I get 10 emails a week about the ADVA, and we're able to get everyone up and running. And it's a self-hosted solution, so it's going to run on your own infrastructure. On the opposite, Oats has other alternative. So let's talk about Harvest. Harvest is basically a Perl script that's running on any Linux server. It's using the NetApp SDK to connect to your filers and clusters. It's using the NetApp APIs, native APIs. And it also provides a set of dashboards for the virtual appliance. So you don't have to come with your own dashboards. When you install Harvest, you're up and running. Once Harvest is running, you get the dashboards and you get the metrics right out of the bat. So you have something to work with as soon as Harvest is installed. And the good thing is that when you update Harvest, the dashboards get updated as well. It's pretty clean in the implementation. It stays pretty flexible. So it works from templates that you can adjust if you have needs that requires maybe more granularity for some workloads or more retention. The retention is more on the Graphite side, but that's more counters. We could, for example, if you had massive infrastructure, we could collect every metrics every second, right? Maybe you might want to set up an infrastructure to do that. It wouldn't do you any good, I guess, but that's something you can do. So we had to find something in the middle, something that was a good starting point for our customers to collect some metrics at the minute interval, some metrics maybe less often because it wouldn't make any sense. The capacity stuffs, for example, are collected every 15 minutes, but because that's not something that's changing that fast. So to adjust these things with Harvest, you don't have to change the line of code in Harvest. And here's the kind of dashboards that you're getting out of the box. So some of these stuffs are pretty easy. Latency, throughput, what's my IOPS at the volume level? We're looking at a cluster here actually. So it regroups two nodes in a cluster and provides a bird's eye view on your performance. You have much more dashboards here in that menu where you can drill down into volume, into aggregate, into lift, and that kind of stuff. Here is another example with a little bit more information, your system utilization, backend IOPS in terms of protocol. So here we start to go into deeper metrics that starts to be a little bit complex to explain. But if you find the right person to ask, or if you do your own tests, you can get you're getting used to that and try to map that to your actual workload and see what makes sense with what you are doing with your NetApp infrastructure. These are default dashboards. Obviously, if you want to make your own, that's what Grafana is for. So what we observed is that people were starting to use it. So people were starting to install it. And when they saw the prerequisite to install NetApp Harvest, usually these are people that are not Unix admin. Some of you are, obviously, but not everyone. And sometimes the storage team, they don't want to have to deal with installing the Linux server, having to deal with the Graphite installation, which can be kind of a challenge. That's usually the part where people were struggling with. And then the Grafana installation was a little bit more easy, but it was kind of confusing a while back when the Grafana was just running in the browser. You kind of had to deal with IPs and make sure that the IPs from the perspective of the browser made sense, that kind of stuff. It's based on Debian, and it contains the products and a web menu to configure your clusters and your filers and your 7-mode systems as well. So it's really easy. You download the virtual appliance, you upload it to your vSphere infrastructure. There's no Hyper-V version yet because, and if any of you have a solution, I couldn't find an easy automated way to generate a VHD. Is that the file format for Hyper-V? So you'd have to start with the OVA. There's no reason it wouldn't be supported on Hyper-V. It's a Linux VM, but yeah, it's not something you can download out of the box. And here's how it looks like. So many thanks to the community. Obviously, these guys is the foundation of what we're working with here. But without, Packer to generate to automate the generation of the VM, GitLab to host the code, Selenium, the WebDriver for the automated test. So each time I commit the code for the virtual appliance, if I tag with the build tag, it runs everything in the background and it generates and publishes automatically a build for the virtual appliance. Without these projects, I wouldn't be able to do that, and that would lead to a much less stable project as you know. Bootstrap for the UI, PHP. I'm not ashamed, that's fine. I love PHP. I'm almost 40 years old, so that's fine. Don't beat me on that one. Here's how it works. It's pretty simple, pretty obvious. Harvest is running here on the Linux machine. It's pulling data from your 7-mode system. That's another great difference from our supported tools. We decided that 7-mode was a legacy, and we are not, the modern management suite at NetApp is not connecting to 7-mode anymore. But in the field, the reality is that 7-mode is still used. So obviously, NetApp clustered data on tap, and it's also connecting to your CUM servers. And the reason is that Harvest is pulling any performance metrics from the box directly, real time, kinda. And it's pulling capacity information in OCUM because it would make no sense to collect information from these when OCUM already has that information, and we'd rather pull from the management than pull from the filer for the capacity thing that we don't need in really real time. If you have a multi-site infrastructure, you might want to deploy one of these in each data center, for example, and push in a centralized Graphite installation and a centralized Graphite and Grafana installation. Any of these you might already have. It's up to you how you want to do this. Harvest connects to 2003 Graphite, push the metrics, and that's pretty much it, right? You indicate what is your Graphite server, and that's pretty much all the customization you might need. So when do we mention that? Like I said earlier, power users, experts, when you guys have 7-mode systems and you want an equivalent of what you had before with the DFM servers that had more graphs and metrics for the different parts of your storage. So welcome back. Now we're providing that through the Grafana and Graphite implementation. You might want to change some collection interval. You might want to change some retency policy. You want flexibility over the metrics. The metrics are here. They're provided to you as a customer through the APIs. We're making it easier to collect and store and graph. Many of you are probably going to be in that situation. You already have Graphite and or Grafana somewhere. Unfortunately, there's no support for another database yet because there was no demand. Of course, the more people that are asking for an alternative database, if you listen to the same format as Graphite and port 2003 on another port, you can do whatever you want with it. But that's the out of the box. That's what's supported. And of course, that might be a challenge. Some customers, I had a hard time getting that deployed because they were like, yeah, it's not really a NetApp product. We're not going to have support. We're not interested. Why is not NetApp doing it and supporting it? To that, I never had an answer, but they finally gave, and they installed the virtual appliance in that case, and they're really happy with it, even if it's not supported. Or should I say community supported? But that's open source. We know how it works. What are people doing with it? Usually as storage admins, they're going to try to prove that the problem is not from storage. So it's, they're going to try to find a culprit somewhere else in the infrastructure, the application, the network, and show the people with a picture, an image, it works much better. That, nope, I'm sorry, I really don't see the latency at the volume level. It's got to be somewhere else. It is storage, and we know why. It is storage, and I don't know, but I have the instrumentation to dig deeper. That's sometimes just a matter of confidence and having the metrics, having the numbers, and looking at the numbers. The basic thing is that coming to work every morning and looking at dashboards, really, it's not really what we want to do. Ideally, we'd like to have, alerts that make sense and be, go with our day with things that are meaningful and useful. But the reality is that we need to have access to that information. We need to be able to, not every morning, but we need to be able, when we need to, go to the data, go back to the data. What was happening yesterday at 2 o'clock in the morning, right? Because the application owner just put a ticket and we got the ticket. But the problem is that if we don't have the data in the retention, we're not going to be able to do any type of analysis. And the problem is that without some kind of integration with the APIs, NetApp does not have a tool that lets you go back in time. OPM does that a little bit, but not in a granular way, not with all these metrics. And usually when you're going to call support, when you had an incident in the past, they're not going to let you talk. They're going to ask, do you have a perf stat? Can you upload the perf stat to NetApp? It is frustrating, but it's how it works today. Sometimes if you don't have the perf stat, but if you have the metrics, you can show them, well, I don't, but here is what I got, and maybe you can help me with that. And of course, they like Grafana. I mean, the eye candy aspect of it, well, for people that don't know Grafana, it's really the big hit, the big win with new customers or customers that are not aware of that. And most of them are actually asking, hey, can I maybe do other stuff with that Grafana thing? Yeah, of course, whatever you want. So here's how the ADVA is implemented. So that's the virtual appliance part of it. It's like I said earlier, it's a Debian 8.5. Apache on top of everything, reverse proxying or proxying to the different products. Graphite to get the metrics. Grafana obviously for the web UI as the root of the HTTP connection. And /admin is the custom web UI that you're going to use. Once the virtual appliance is deployed, you go with your favorite browser to the virtual appliance and you authenticate with the default login and password, and you can start adding your NetApp C.cluster 7-mode system or CUM servers. I'm lying a little bit because in the enterprise world, we are all surrounded by lawyers and legal concerns, and I was not able to distribute an NMSDK and harvest into the virtual appliance out of the box. So when you download the virtual appliance, you're going to have to install these products. I try to make these as easy as possible, and it's really a matter of going on the web forum, push the products, and hit enter. But still, I could not distribute the binaries with this. I wish NetApp actually at least released the SDK as a redistributable way, and without license agreement attached. Everything's stored into the Whisper DB, and of course, in 2003, we have Carbon running and some tools on the system that you can use. The root password is out there. You can use it, because the thing is that is not supported. So I'm not going to say, no, I'm not going to give you the root password, but I'm not going to support you either. So we're trying to give you all the tools that you might need to debug and troubleshoot the virtual appliance itself. So let's see how it works. So this is the text UI. When you install virtual appliance into your vSphere infrastructure, you can go into the console. You're going to see the IP address. It's pretty much what you need to start working with the virtual appliance. It's by default distributed with DHCP. If you don't have DHCP on the network, you go here, you choose one, you say static, and you configure your IP settings. So that's pretty straightforward. Once you have the IP address, so it's going to tell you here that the Harvest and NMSDK are not installed. You can go ahead and hit 5, and you can get the direct links to get these products. But you don't have to go here. You can go straight to the website once you have installed the VM and start working with it here. So here's what you get here. It's telling you that NetApp SDK and Harvest are not installed, and it's telling you, yep, go ahead and you can install it. Default password is NetApp01 with a capital N, and the default user is admin. So that's the configuration page. On the maintenance area here, you can go ahead and install your 2 files that you get from the tool chest or from the download site. So NetApp Harvest is available on tool chest. You can just grab the latest version. I'm working with Chris to make sure before he releases a new version that it works with the virtual appliance, and at the same time, he's also aware of what the virtual appliance requires, so we work together so that everything's working as expected for the customers. Just a little trick for the current version, the package for NetApp Harvest is distributed with, once you unzip the package, you get the TGZ and you get the .deb and some documentation, but don't try to upload what you downloaded directly. It's not going to work. It's going to be fixed in the next release. So you send the TGZ file, you type your password, upload, all good. It's going to do some stuff. You don't need network connectivity. Maybe some people were using the virtual appliance in the past where I was installing the product automatically when the first boot of the virtual appliance happened. That was not a good idea. I mean, we're in the financial here. Most of our customers, they don't even have an internet connection in the infrastructure. So that didn't work. So now when you download the virtual appliance, it's all included except for these 2 pieces that you need to upload. Harvest and NMSDK. Okay, so once everything's in place, it's installing the dashboards that are provided with Harvest, and you're up and running. I'm going to do just a little adjustment here, disable the HCP, and fix that DNS server. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Okay, so once you have that installed, you're going to have the Harvest menu that appears here at the top. And you can add your first system. Class 1. MacBook Pro, for example. These are default values. You can use the admin user for your cluster. I would not recommend you do this because it's a highly privileged user. There's a documentation that goes with Harvest that describes exactly the roles that you might need to create a specific user for Harvest. So we suggest that you use that instead. But for the demo, we're gonna use admin. Okay, so it's adding the cluster, and from now on, it's ready, running. I can go back to home here, and I see that you get a list of your systems on the left. You get a list of the OCM servers down in the bottom here. And you have a couple of buttons here to manage Grafana and Carbon, start and stop. So let's go ahead and try to see what's going on in Graphite, for example. See if our metric starts to collect. It's good. It's collected at the minute, usually. Most of these metrics in Harvest are collected at straight boundaries, so at the quarter or at the, every 10 minutes, and it's going to start at 0, 15, 30. So it's pretty predictable in a way that it's collecting stuff. Some of the metrics are collected every minute. For example, CPU utilization is already in that minute granularity. Let's go ahead and charge Grafana. So this is a default Grafana 4 installation with just the dashboards pre-configured for you. So this is the list of dashboards that you get out of the box when you install the virtual appliance. There's a lot of different types of dashboard that you can use. You can, of course, create your own. There's, usually you always go in the same dashboards. How is my SVM storage virtual machine doing? What is my cluster doing? What is the detail about a specific volume? For example, it's not getting anything yet, but it should be shortly. So the goal with the virtual appliance was really to make it easy for our customers to start using Graphite and Grafana. This is which one? Yeah, that's the VA. So that's a Harvest installation running in a lab. So that's the kind of information that you get when you're logged in. And let's say, for example, that you want to drill down into your SVM performance. You've seen that there is a challenge in terms of performance. I could not, I'm not able to reproduce performance problems here because it's like, it's hard to have performance problems with NetApp. We're doing very well. But the other reason is that it's not my lab. So I don't know. And the kind of stuff, that's the kind of metric that you get. And one that I use very often, for example, is the NFSV free IOPS per type. You need to collect granular information to get that. Because if you want to have that every minute to troubleshoot problems, there's no other way. You have to use Harvest there. That's the only solution for this. And usually, or sometimes what we find when the customers are complaining about performance issues is that they're doing something really not good with the storage. For example, they have high metadata type of workloads. So they find out that the users are designing the application in a way that could be more optimal. Yes? No, these are API based. So NetApp publishes the ZAPI. We call it the ZAPI. So that's the set of APIs that are distributed by NetApp. You get that when you download the NM SDK, NetApp Manageability SDK. We have sample and libraries for C#, Perl, Python, Ruby, maybe a couple others, C probably. So it could be better. It's not RESTful, for example. It could be better than what it is now. It's XML based. But it's kind of well organized. And once you get used to it, it's pretty easy to make a call and collect performance metrics. Yep. Usually if I get to do a demo, that's usually pretty convincing. If I don't, I wait until they have too much problem to avoid the discussion. It's not supported, but yeah, like I said earlier, it's not in the critical path. It's not going to break anything if it doesn't work. Now, if people get used to it, it becomes important for their job, and when it's not there anymore because there's a problem, then yes, then we might get in troubles. Especially when I was talking about the alerting in Grafana 4. That's kind of a problem for me. That's a problem I want to solve, but I'm a little bit scared of going there because it means that's something I'm going to have to support, and I'm going to have to be accountable for, hey, we didn't get the notification, what happened? So, well, at the same time, the customers have to be aware that it's a community-supported solution, so with what it means. And yeah, that's. I found that most people are usually open to that kind of stuff as long as it's not on the data path. If it's on the monitoring side, that's okay. And Yeah, each vendor is different. I wish I had a little bit more information, actually. I'm sure customers. So one of my customers are using Splunk as a central repository for the metrics. So they found that Tachi, EMC are pushing the metrics in flat files, kind of CSV files. And I was kind of ashamed that we couldn't do that. So I had to explain myself for this and say, no, but look, we have a better solution. It's much better than CSV files. It is. So the fact that you can, from Graphite, easily pull a JSON or a CSV format is a pretty good feature as well. So that way they can push the data back to any repository that they want to use. So yeah, that's a metric that's important. The IOPS per type, when people are doing much more metadata operations, I go in a directory, I list the directory, I list the dates, I change the properties of a file, I exit, I go to the next directory, and I'm not reading and writing anything. That kind of kills any kind of NFS or CIFS server. It's not that it kills it, it's that it needs to be sized for this. And people often, they don't realize that. But that's the only tool where we can only we can read the IOPS per type of IO. Otherwise, OPM or the NetApp tool, sometimes they would only show you read and writes. So you'll look at the graph and you're like, no, I'm not doing anything with that volume because it's not accounting for the metadata type of ops. So that's the SVM view, and we have the volume drill down, the detailed volume dashboards where you get much more information. I hope I'm going to find a volume where there's something going on. All right, that's a lot of throughput. Yeah, that's a lot of zeros. Let's try to find another one, maybe. Oh, we had a... all right. So, yeah, we're running short on time. There we go. Any volume? Am I lucky here? No, not really. Let's do this. So you get, just to show you, you get really a lot of metrics. Most of these are populated. Here you don't see it because either it doesn't have NAS or it doesn't have SAN, but these are not populated here, but you get these populated by default. If you want to participate, if you want to have more information about the project, head on to dev.tinso.org. I'm still on the fence whether I open source it or not. I give access to anyone that wants it. For a stupid reason, I don't know yet if I'm going to open source it. I'm probably gonna, but I need to work on that. So you can register on that website. You you shoot me a note to say, hey, can you add me to that project? And I'd be glad to do it. Grafana 4 alerting annotation is a pretty big deal as well. I heard that Graphite kind of stores annotations now, or there's a solution to store annotations. I'm going to work on that. And I'm out of time. Yep, I'm just going to display this, and we're all good. Thank you.